There's a real change that's been going on in the last 15 years, a tremendous change of more and more women coming into magic.
The tradition of the tuxedo-clad magician and his lovely female assistant is something of an icon for the art of magic, and magic has historically been a male-dominated profession. But as the popularity of magic explodes, women are becoming more and more prominent as headliners in their own right. The metamorphosis is a classic illusion of magic. The magician, usually a man, disappears, only to reappear transformed into his female assistant. As with Las Vegas-based magic duo Mark and Ginger, executing this variation on the complicated spectacle requires the dedication and skills of both performers, men and women relying on one another. The fact is that despite their major contributions to the art, women have been largely unrecognized throughout the history of magic.
Women have always been performing on stage. They just haven't made the famous factor that we know about. But all throughout history, there have always been great magicians.
That's the way that a lot of women's magic and women's energy works, you know, is that we are often very much the supporters, you know, that supports the structure of a system, but we're not necessarily the ones that come forward and that are like in the spotlight.
Today's women in magic often seek out heroines of the past, female role models who dared to assert themselves and challenge audiences to accept magicians of either sex. More recently, after assisting David Copperfield for 8.5 years, Joni Spina transformed her life and moved center stage as a performer. Throughout the history of magic, women have been faced with more than lack of recognition, as their triumphs were often eclipsed by the accomplishments of men. Their strong role in the art has sometimes meant risking their lives for magic.
It's been difficult for women in magic for the past couple of hundred years, going back to the Inquisition, that any woman that was involved in magic was basically burned as a witch. But if you go back before that, there's a very rich history of women being healers and wise women and oracles, you know, being extremely psychic. There's all of the great archetypes of the wise woman, the witch healer, the Oracle of Delphi, and all the other oracular, you know, strains that came off of that.
In a time where a lady rarely spoke unless spoken to, it's difficult to imagine women defying social standards by pursuing careers in magic. One trailblazer was the vivacious Mercedes Talma, born Marianne Ford in 1868, and hired as a magician's assistant by Surveille Leroy. The audiences adored Marianne, who eventually married Leroy and adopted the stage name Mercedes Telma. Unlike many women on stage at the time, Mercedes wasn't merely an attractive adornment, but a significant part of his act. Adept at coin manipulation, Mercedes was dubbed Queen of Coins and often performed tricks solo. Another pioneering spirit was Adelaide Herman, who honed her magic skills after marrying into the Herman family, one of the world's greatest magic dynasties.
At the beginning of this century, Adelaide Herman, who was the widow of Alexander Herman, a famous magician, toured vaudeville with a really sensational stage production. When we look at the pictures of this today, I mean, it looks like a setting for a grand opera.
Born Adelaide Scarsay, she parlayed her skills as a professional dancer into a career as magician's assistant to her husband. After his death in 1896, financial necessity forced her to continue performing. It was audacity and showmanship that made her a star. During a career that spanned 4 decades, she traveled the world before retiring at the age of 73. Being a female entertainer has never been easy. In the 1930s and 40s, a woman in the entertainment business was perceived as being on the edge, or worse, loose. The idea that a woman might shun marriage in favor of touring from city to city without a chaperone was considered outrageous. One such maverick was Dell O'Dell, a born entertainer who injected her trademark wit into everything she did, leaving an enduring legacy and influencing subsequent generations.
Dell started out as a weightlifter. She was a strong woman in the circus before she became a magician, and she would speak in rhyme. So I think she was revolutionary on one level in that she was able to transcend the glamour thing.
She was a remarkably versatile performer. She was as equally at home with performing in front of a group of sailors, and I'm told her language would be appropriate for the occasion. She'd wear low-cut dresses and make lewd remarks. And then the next moment, she could turn around and do a children's birthday party and be completely appropriate in that setting, too. The significant thing about Dell O'Dell is the remarkable success she had in a period in time when magic wasn't well recognized. Most magicians were trying to hack out a living doing an occasional nightclub spot or a kid's birthday party. Dell O'Dell had her own television show.
But even before Dell O'Dell, another conjuring woman graced television screens. Jerry Larson delighted children in the early 1950s, playing a sweet fairy living in a land of enchantment on her weekly television show.
She was the first lady magician to ever have her own television show, The Magic Lady. People were very impressed that a lady could do all these tricks and all that magic. So it was a very, very good series.
As the former editor of the international magic journal Genie magazine, German-born Irene Larson is herself no stranger to the business. She had been working as an assistant for several years by the time she married magician Bill Larson Jr. in 1963, at which point she began to divide her time working with her husband and assisting such magicians as Orson Welles and Jack Gwynne. Like Irene Larson, most women get their start in magic by becoming an assistant. Integral to any act, it's one of magic's most underestimated roles. As a child, magician Luna Shimada got an early taste of it by assisting her father, the magician Shimada.
Magicians' assistants have always been kind of like the slave labor of show business. You know, we do all the magic and all the work and get none of the credit.
Since their early days on stage, assistants have come a long way from the time when they often did little more than stand quietly, holding the next prop. In the 1960s, veteran assistant Nani Darnell bridged the gap between assistant and co-star by becoming more involved in the act, from designing the show to business affairs.
I did things like helping with the costuming. I helped work with the magic tricks as they were created. I worked in almost every phase of what we did.
Husband and wife, Mark and Ginger Kalin, who perform as Mark and Ginger, were determined from the start that their relationship remain as equal on stage as off, something they're very conscious of communicating to their audience.
At the same time, we didn't necessarily want to take the tack of two magicians, because I think what's interesting about male and female is that you're different. So it's finding ways to, sort of accentuate what's different about each other without falling into a stereotype.
It's important to realize that it takes two of us to create the magic. Doesn't mean that we both have to be magicians.
And their chemistry has definitely had an intriguing effect on the audience.
When I had worked with the other girls before Ginger, they always were a little bit upset because after the show, people would only refer to them as Mark's assistant. You say, oh yeah, that's Mark Kalin, and his assistant, right? Well, I'm walking through the casino and this mother's walking with her kid, this little boy, and he stops his mom and says, look, Mom, there's Ginger's magician. That's when I knew that there was something there.
But no matter how democratic a scenario, at the end of the day, the magician is still the idol. And so, the bolder female assistants eventually strike out on their own and become magicians in their own right.
I felt I ought to do my own work at some point, And I had staged for so many magicians that my body language, I did both the magician's roles and the assistant's roles as far as choreographing and movement and working with people.
Yet some women believe it doesn't matter if performers are men or women. Working the birthday party circuit, magician Lisa Mena believes she got bookings regardless of sex.
I don't think the people that hired me, the mothers that hired me because I was a magician. They hired me because if Lisa Lollipop wasn't at your birthday, you weren't cool. It was a whole entertainment experience. I think that whether it was magic or it was gags or it was comedy wasn't a concern to them. And it certainly wasn't a concern to them that I was a little girl and not a little boy.
But the battle of the sexes isn't over yet, as even the most accomplished women in magic will attest. Magic is still dominated by men, and for audiences, old stereotypes die hard.
It's a major, major obstacle, to stage the material, because the audience naturally wants to give credit to the man because they view the man as he's bigger, he's stronger than the woman, and they want to give the male the credit for what's happening up there.
Card. Okay. You got it? Yeah. Sign your name on the top somewhere. And
As a secretive society, magic has always been something of a boys' club, with its own rules, ideas, and traditions. And for women, this can mean constraints, even with things as basic as clothing. Take the tuxedo, the magician's classic uniform. Its main intention may be to lend an air of ceremony to performances, but it also has a function: pockets, something women's designer clothing lacks.
Now think about that. No pockets. No pockets in the skirt, no pockets in the coat. Because to put things in your pockets would be to ruin the lines of the clothes. So now you have women, they have a lot of adjustments to make. Because everything they read has to be adapted to them. But the bigger problem is that magic, as most men do it, is a power display. And we don't want women being powerful in our society. We resent those images. And so women have had a rough time of it, trying to find out what their own path in magic is. Not only in terms of how to carry stuff when you don't have any pockets, but also what is the persona of this woman?
For a woman to have power and to have a secret and keep the secret and not tell isn't nice. And the first thing we're trained as girls is to be nice. You know that women fear not being liked or not being nice or thought of as being rude. And all of those things are things that one must do if you are keeping a secret and presenting the effect to the audience and saying, I have the power to do this, and I know, and I'm not telling you.
One of the fundamental problems is when you think of a magician is a very male archetype. You know, the wand is a phallus. But in the women's tradition, the woman is the high priestess, is the oracle, and her tool is the cup, if you look in the tarot. The priestess is the keeper of the mysteries and the initiator. So perhaps, you know, over the years, women have been playing the wrong archetype, where they've been focusing on the magician. Maybe it's time to start researching the women's archetypes throughout history and to access the other archetypes that the woman has played throughout history.
Although the market has opened up for women over the last few years, the prevailing image of the sexy assistant has made it difficult for many women to be taken seriously.
It was difficult for women to start because we became so stereotyped as assistants. I remember going through customs one day and telling them that I was a magician, you know, by trade, and they said, "Are you a magician or are you an assistant?" You know, and it was just like this basic example of a mindset that, you know, I think a lot of women run into.
As a solution, photographer Ann White launched the Women in Magic Conference in Hollywood in April '97 as a venue for female conjurers to discuss every aspect of the business from their perspective.
Where else could you be at 3 in the morning with another woman magician with small hands showing you how to do a magic manipulation, which you'd never understood how to do before, because these men with big hands were telling you how to do it, and you needed to adjust for the size of the hands.
I can't show everybody how I hide the pigeon beneath my skirt and pull it out in mixed company. With girls, I can say, look, I can hike up my skirt and say, check it out, this is a great way to do it.
I think that women are coming to magic out of a very different mindset than men do. And it really is more about sharing than it is about power. And maybe it's even more about healing than it is about power. But, you know, we're in a state where it's always difficult to evaluate what's going on right in front of your nose. You know, when you get a little distance from things, then you can see them clearly. And that's why my prediction is that in 20 years, the impact of women on magic is probably going to be something we can't imagine right now.
And since women differ from men in fundamental ways, their artistic and presentation styles reflect, obviously, more traditionally feminine sensibilities.
And you can tell very immediately if that show's been designed by a man or a woman, because a man will involve mutilation themes, he'll involve conquest themes, he'll involve themes that involve power. If you see a woman's magic show, like for example Jade, she's one of the best lady magicians in the world. She produces abundance of rice, fountains of flowers, water, she brings butterflies to life. Everything that she does is about creating miracles of abundance and production. Whereas the idea of conquest or survival or torture or pain is very much a male-dominated thought pattern.
I think that what makes women's magic different from men is that we tend to take more of a artistic approach to it and a more creative kind of approach, and that those are the elements that we work with. We work with creation, we work with beautiful themes, and you know, and so art plays a big part in our style, in the way that we look at our magic and the way we view our magic. It becomes more about just being out there and going, hey, I'm the powerful one and you're not.
I like movement, I like sensuality, I like emotion, I like passion. And those are the things that I want to express in my work, more so than danger. But if I were to expand my act, I would definitely put something, an escape, something dangerous, death-defying, definitely.
But the times are changing, and contemporary female conjurers are setting a new stage, creating their own niche in magic.
There's a real change that's been going on in the last 15 years, a tremendous change of more and more women coming into magic. So we have people like Jade and Luna Shimada, Margaret Steele, Melinda, you know, lots of women in magic, many that you've never heard of, but all doing it and doing it well.
13-year-old Brittany Malatesta uses the stage name The Lizard Wizard. But even with her strong dedication to magic, some men have dismissed her talent because of her sex. It's a problem she noted in a letter Ann White read at the Women in Magic conference.
I have a boy as my assistant, and also 3 other girls to fill in if he's sick. I haven't had too much trouble yet, except when I go into magic shops and they ignore me and try to sell me junk. Now that my picture was in Magic magazine, they treat me better. Sometimes old men magicians will give me dumb advice, like how I should wear a cute, short costume instead of my Tibetan panel coat.
I think that it's certainly the women's job now in the world to present entertainment in such a fashion that we don't have to buy into it the way we are pushed. It's very easy now for young women to believe that that's the most important thing. But now there are role models available to us that are not glamorous and beautiful, and their first and most important value is not to be attractive to men. Maybe they are clever, maybe they are smart, maybe they are sarcastic, maybe they are strong.
And their impact will echo in the future.
I think most of the jobs I get have nothing to do with if I'm a man or a woman. Most of the jobs I get have to do with is the audience bewildered and entertained.
So there's a big change happening, and it's going to be interesting to see in 20 years what the impact of women in magic is.
I'm looking forward to the future of magic. I think that it's moving in a very progressive direction.